Are we live?
Yeah, we're live. Hey everybody, happy Friday to you. If
Happy
this is your
Friday.
if this is your first time here, welcome to the Proverbial Masterminds. I'm Dr. Sherry and this is my lovely friend Erin Harrigan, and we are two individuals living and loving life and learning to rely upon the master's wisdom. And so we've been reading through the book of Proverbs, one verse at a time, since November 1st of 2020. So this episode, Erin, marks the end of 7 months of wisdom seeking.
Is that insane to anybody else?
7 months. I know we haven't been doing the show for 7. I think we've been doing the show for 6, though.
Pretty much. I mean, this is episode 25. So, yeah.
That's really awesome. So anyway, I say that to say I feel like today is going to sound a little bit like we've come full circle, but we haven't. I think what we're going to find is that it's this continuing repetitive route. And so today we're going to be talking about something that we talked about way back at the very beginning. Let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start.
Okay. Sometimes we just break out in song. If you watch the trailer, there is song.
There is song. Yeah. So yeah, let's so each Friday then what we do on the show here is we talk about the last 7 verses that we've read, including the verse for today. So basically, these are the verses that Erin and I have read from Saturday to today. And this week, there's one verse that carries over from our last 4 episodes that were all about adultery.
But you have to go watch them because
it's not all about
when we say adultery, yes, in the text, this is what it talks about. But we really got into some amazing conversations about being lured away or distracted or tempted. So it's really good.
Really good. Absolutely. Tons of personal revelations. I think that things that God showed both of us that were far outside of the surface nature of those episodes. So anyway, today, full circle, calling, wisdom calling, call waiting. Wisdom calling waiting, call waiting. Okay. What do you have for us today, Erin?
So call waiting. So I don't know if many of you who watch remember when there was no call waiting. So you would call somebody and it just would be like beep, beep,
busy
beep, right?
tone.
Busy. And my best friend and I would then call the operator to interrupt the call. You could do that then. It very strange.
Interesting. Oh yeah, that's right. You could call and get some switchboard operator, which I guess that's not even a job anymore.
It's not even a thing. It's kind of like, does anybody remember when you used to call the weather or the time?
Oh yeah.
Right. So then they came out with call waiting, which was so interesting because then you could be like, oh, hold on, I have a call on the other line. So the reason this came up for me is in chapter 8. So we've been talking about adultery and being tempted and lured away. And the last verse I'm reading today from the Passion Translation, the last verse of Proverbs 7, which this verse was what we read last Saturday in our 7 days, was in this version says, if you're looking for the road to hell, just go looking for her house.
Oh, I like that version.
That's bam, right?
Yeah. If you're looking for the road to hell, just go find her.
That's right. So what Sherry, what you were just saying is that, it may seem like we've come full circle, and it's because Solomon, as he's writing these Proverbs, keeps coming back to this visual and this truth that wisdom is there and wisdom is waiting for you. And in some places he talks about, wisdom is the woman going through the square and calling out to others. And so this starts with, can't you hear the voice of wisdom from the top of the mountains of influence? She speaks into the gateways of the glorious city, at the place where the pathways merge, at the entrance of every portal. There she stands, ready to impart understanding, shouting aloud to all who enter, preaching her sermon to those who will listen. So that's just the first 3 verses. So
Yeah.
together with the last verse of chapter 7, that's 4 of the 7 that we would read this week. So let me just finish reading this out. I'm calling to you, sons of Adams, yes, and to you, daughters, as well. Listen to me, and you will be prudent and wise, for even the foolish and feeble can receive an understanding of heart that will change their inner behavior. The meaning of my words will release within you revelation for you to reign in life. My lyrics will empower you to live by what is right. So there's so much here, but the reason that I was thinking call waiting is because here's wisdom calling out to us.
Yeah.
And if we're not careful and we're not sort of paying attention to wisdom, then we're on the other line with, the woman at the path to hell or the distraction or whatever that is. And are we going to pick up when wisdom calls and click over? That's what it used to be called, click over from call waiting. Or are we going to ignore it? And what I love in this that Solomon is saying is like, can't you hear the voice of wisdom? Like from a place of influence, she's calling out to you, but are we going to click over or are we going to continue down the path? And the beauty is that the Lord gives us that choice because we have free will.
Yeah.
We have free will. So that's
and that's really good. And I think I'm going to share with you something that happened last night that is directly related to this, I believe. So, but before I do that, let me share with you a little truth about my mother, Shirley, who hated call waiting.
Oh, please.
And when it came out, right? Like when it was a thing, when it became a thing that you could get from your phone provider.
Yes.
When it became available.
Which was an extra fee, by the way.
Yeah. She refused, not because of the fee, but because she said it was rude.
Oh.
And it's interesting, right? Because she's like, whatever you're making a priority, make it a priority. Do you know what I mean? So like really, so we never had, we might have worn her down. I don't know, 2 teenagers, they can work wonders over time. We may have worn her down. I'm not sure, but that's never left me that how often so when you were talking about when you're doing this and you're ready to click over, that could work in the reverse too. How often are we, walking and trying to walk with God, and then we see something bright and shiny and we click over, and go to that thing. I was actually thinking about this with I did a post on Instagram the other day about the storm and how like when you're going through a storm in your life, it's sometimes I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like frenetic. Like,
oh yeah,
I'm like, oh, I just trust you, Lord. I trust you. And then I'm like, I'm falling, help me.
Yes.
And then you're like, okay, Lord, that you're catching me. I feel so good right now. No, why is this happening? And so the other day I looked up at the sky, on summer afternoons when it's really hot, we start to get those really interesting storms where there's a lovely juxtaposition of dark and light right. And so it kind of like the whole picture of this storm, of this struggle, shows that it showed, and here's what God spoke to me, speaking of wisdom being obvious. This is something I want to invite everybody to understand, that God speaks to you through he has the ability and the power to speak to you through everything. So
yes,
his creation speaks of his truth.
Yes.
Right. And so when I looked at that, I saw the big picture. And see, so when we're going through a storm, God sees the big picture. He sees the hope, and he sees the turmoil. He sees the whole outcome. But sometimes all we see is the cloud. We don't stop to go, And I
Yeah.
know that the sun is behind that cloud. I know it's there.
Yes.
I may not see it, but I know it's
Yes.
there. And so that to me is one of these beautiful examples of I won't read in your version because I don't have your version, but you know, in the New Living Translation, verse 6 of chapter 8 says, "Listen to me, for I have important things to tell you.
Mm,
Everything I say is right." So listen to me is like, you know, if you see something and you hear a message that's leading you closer to God, that is God's wisdom speaking to you through the power of the Holy Spirit, through his creation and
yes.
through, you know, the created. I'll share another story later, but I want to turn it back over to you about my dogs. I'm actually writing a book about the lessons that my dogs teach me about
Love that.
who God is. And I just got another doozy of one last night. So, so I can share that with you later. But anyway, I wanted to, for you, Aaron, I think it's critical that we are ready that we are expectant,
Mm,
that in everything we see, touch, taste, feel, we can receive God's wisdom.
everything. And I love your example right there with the dogs,
Mm,
right?
mhm,
I think sometimes people get and I know I do, which is why there's so many materials on this, like hearing from the Lord.
mhm.
And it's not, and I do believe that some people sense and feel that it's an audible voice.
Who did you say it would be? James Earl
Morgan
Jones?
Freeman
Oh,
or James Earl Jones, but
James
mostly
Earl
Morgan Freeman.
Jones. Okay.
I don't know. I said that in my book actually.
Okay.
But I think that people overlook, I think two things. We overlook that he uses everyday things,
Yeah.
clouds and the
Yes.
storm, which
Yes.
by the way, the other thing that was coming up as you were talking about the storm is that frenetic energy of lightning,
Uh-huh.
which is that frantic energy.
Yes.
Um, I think people get caught up in, oh, I need to see a sign, right? Which by the way, just like Gideon in the Bible, right? Like, let me throw this fleece out here. And today, if it has dew,
Right.
then I know it's you, Lord.
Right.
And then the next day, oh, but
Oh,
today,
but today,
if
let's
it's
do this
dry,
again.
right? So please know that even the mighty stories of the Bible, the saints of the Bible had the same issue. And the Lord knows this, right?
Well, and look at verse 5.
Yeah.
Even foolish people, that even they can understand. So you know, when we I think about this when we think about the range of intellectual ability,
Mm,
right? So sometimes we think people who are on the lower end of intellectual ability, people with profound disabilities, that they know nothing. The word speaks directly against that. One, they are made in the image of God. Two,
period.
even the simple
Even the simple.
can understand, and he
Yes.
can even speak to the
Yes.
simple. So he speaks to all of us. And I think that's the other reason. And I don't know where that verse is. You're a better citationist.
Ooh,
That's my new word for today. I don't even think it's a word.
you
Citationist.
made it up. I love it.
I did.
I received that.
I'm gonna make you a t-shirt. Um and we are without excuse.
Yeah. I don't know where, but yes.
He speaks to us in whatever is relevant to us.
Yes. And in whatever ways most resonate with us,
Yes,
which
yeah.
is fascinating to me.
Mhm.
Sometimes for me, it's a song. Sometimes, most times it's people.
Mhm.
Um, but let us not overlook that. And I think the other piece of this, where this says in this version, even the foolish and feeble, even
And
the foolish
feeble.
and feeble,
Mhm.
which to me is the ultimate promise that regardless of how foolish we are or were,
Yeah.
that we always have that opportunity to turn that around.
Yeah.
And this idea of call waiting, it's like the Lord is waiting for us to take this wisdom, to
Mhm.
embrace this wisdom, and not only take it, but to keep it with us all the time, which we've talked about in several episodes.
Yeah.
Because early in Proverbs, Solomon talks about putting it around our necks.
Mhm.
And I appreciate that he comes back to this because he knows that we need him to come back to this.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which is
Yeah.
why there's a whole book of wisdom called Proverbs.
And then there's Ecclesiastes.
And then Ecclesiastes, which just like takes it, even further.
We might need to dive into that one because that one is like, I don't know. It's like borderline depressing and exciting.
I totally agree with that.
It's
right.
a
Because in some
tightrope.
parts of it, he's like, none of this matters. I don't know why you worry
Futile.
about it.
Right.
But then he's like, but there's a time for everything. Thank you, Solomon.
I think that's beautiful too, because how often, I don't mean to derail us, but how often do we do that in life?
All the time.
This is ridiculous. This is meaningless. This is futile.
What you said earlier about that, the frenetic energy and how we're like, oh, we're calm in the Lord. And then suddenly we're,
Right.
It reminds me of probably at least 3 or 4 supervisors that I had in my 25 years of corporate life who said to me before I was a believer, before I had fully surrendered to Christ, who said to me, when you operate in this calm sense of confidence, you have an incredible command of the room.
Mm-hmm.
You are able to close business, but it's when you get into this frantic energy that you really do yourself a disservice.
Yes.
And it's so fascinating that early in my career, not even early in my career, honestly, probably within the last 5 years of my career too, that they would say this to me, and in a way that was like, I just want you to be aware when you start to feel that frantic energy, to step back because you're so effective otherwise. And so exactly what you were saying, as we start to see those storm clouds roll in, whatever that's happening in our life, please know, if you're listening to this, that Sherry and I mean, we all have these moments. We're human, right? What I love about you, Sherry, is that you take those lessons and you're so vulnerable in sharing them and then showing us how to apply them, which I think is so beautiful. I thought your post the other day about the storm just was so good. And it's up to us to build and be willing to be in such a relationship with the Lord that we can be aware that we go down those roads and know that he redeems it.
Yes. Amen.
And that he loves us anyway. Right. And I think that those moments, he means for us to have those moments, because it's in those moments that we turn back and we lean in and we grip tighter. It's exactly what he wants us to be doing. Yeah.
That's lovely. That's beautiful. That's exactly what it is. And I always go back to this quote by Charles Spurgeon, who said, anything which makes us pray is a blessing. So with that old hymn that says, count your blessings, count your blessings, name them one by one, count your many blessings, see what God has done. Do you know that?
Yeah. Yeah.
We think about health. We think about financial security. We think about happy kids. We think about,
yes.
We don't think, see, to me, blessings are anything which makes me pray. And which is why my whole message is thriving because of everything, not just the good stuff, but because of everything, because everything is a gift, because it forges you.
Everything.
And everything that you go through that draws you closer to God, that makes you seek him out, even if it's like, what are you doing, God? Let's have a knockdown drag out, even if it's that.
Yes.
You're leaning in and you're listening to that wisdom. You're listening to the wisdom of that experience. And so nothing is wasted.
Nothing is ever wasted. And I think even looking back at Proverbs and seeing like, how much time do we spend on adultery? None of that is wasted. Like there is purpose in it. And as we've said from the beginning of this, please know that we're not trying to be Bible scholars. We're really reading through this and even pouring through our commentaries, etc. And so in coming up to a topic like we dealt with in chapter 7, clearly that was a challenge, and it's still a challenge today, right? that to be distracted by those things and the shiny things and the great materials and the perfume and etc. But it really again speaks to that through all of this there is wisdom to be had, and we get to choose. And through all of it, what the Lord really wants is relationship with
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. So let me share with you my story.
Yes.
And I have my like story chapters like laid out, but I just need to sit down and write it. And I actually ran into this is God is so good. So this is a total aside before I get to my dog story, but I recently participated in a book club with a woman who led it. It's finished. We were reading C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity. And I didn't know any of the women. In fact, the woman who led it, we are literally just Facebook friends. Like we have a lot of the same friends. I know that we've probably been to some networking meeting or something like that at some point, but I don't think I've ever met her in person.
Yeah.
So anyway, I saw her post and she's like, anybody can join. And I'm like, oh, pick me. I
I'm
want to, yeah, I'll do it with you. So we read through this book, and one of the women in the group thread, she was like, is that Sherry Yoder, as in Dr. Sherry Yoder of Front Royal, Virginia? And it turns out, such a small world. It turns out that this was the mom of a little girl who I was the little girl's first therapist back in 2013. And so anyway, we were in this book club together, and I learned recently that she is an illustrator. And so this book is going to be illustrated. It's not going to be a children's book. It's going to be like a gift book. I think I'm going to have Vervante publish it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's going to be like a gift book. And I'm going to ask her. She's like, let's talk about it. So it's not, it's not nailed down yet, but this whole business of this book is coming together. Everything minus the title, which God hasn't given me yet, but he'll
give it to you.
So
but
anyway.
I love how he does that.
Yeah. Right.
Like
it's nothing is random either.
Ever.
If we're looking at this, like look at verse just I'm going to read back through my translation.
Go ahead.
Listen as wisdom calls out, hear as understanding raises her voice. On the hilltop along the road, she takes her stand at the crossroads. So like every turn that we take, everything that we do, wisdom is there. Wisdom is able to be found, either to continue along there, to continue therein, or to go in a different direction.
Yes. And I just want to pull out from my book, the last chapter of my book. I think it's the last chapter. Yes. No. The second to last chapter. I found this quote. So this reminds me of the crossroads. It reminds me of that we're always going to hit a crossroads. And many times in life, we come to the same crossroads. And this is what Beth Moore says. This is from her Believing God devotional journal.
Okay.
And she says, we know we're coming full circle with God when we stand at a very similar crossroad where we made such a mess of life before, but this time we take a different road. And I love in your, in the New Living Translation that you were just reading, she takes her stand at the crossroads. And to me, what that means is, and based on that Beth Moore quote, is that we come to this crossroads, but there is wisdom. We come to this crossroads and there is wisdom. At every juncture, God is there, and he is so gracious to pour out this wisdom and this promise, even when we've screwed it up.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not even that there's a second chance. There's like billions and trillions of chances that the Lord gives us, and how merciful.
Oh, how merciful.
I mean, come on.
Abundant in mercy, abundant. So I was outside with the dogs, and we have our fire pit, and they eat their treat, and then they run around and they smell stuff. They're both hound dogs. So one of them, my little Luca, she has a fierce prey drive, just fierce. And there's been, carnage in my backyard with bunnies and birds and things like that, which has broken my heart. PETA, if you're watching, I don't joy in that. But that's what she was made for.
I don't condone that, but I
don't
cannot
condone her
dog.
behavior. That's right. Yes. Stick with that. I cannot control the dog. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So last night we're out there and I have a building in the backyard that's on the other end of the yard away from the house. And it's a fairly large building. It was once a primitive house, I believe. And I'm afraid I might sneeze. Please.
Hold, please. This is live, people.
Okay. Sorry. I have my windows open.
Look at the light. Do you do that? That makes me sneeze when I have to sneeze.
I thought you were telling me to look at the light so I wouldn't sneeze.
No. That makes me sneeze. Go on.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
On. Sorry.
So, so she ran up to the building and she's like, so there's a ramp that my uncle built because there were no steps into it. It's where I keep the mower and all of that stuff in the building. So there's a ramp. Underneath the ramp, there's like a hole that goes underneath of the building. Okay. Well, I know that bunnies live under there. She's chased them out of there before. There's probably other things that live under there, but something last night was under there and she could smell it and it was driving her nuts. So this started at about 8:30. Now, if you've never heard the deep bay of a black and tan coonhound, it probably traveled for miles. So this went on from like 8:30 to, I wasn't really concerned about it because it wasn't like near noise ordinance time, right? Like whatever. I'm just going to let her hunt.
Right.
And if I run up to her to try to get her to stop, she runs to me like, Mama, look what I found. Are you so excited? Like, aren't you proud? And then she gets crazier. So I just kind of stay away from her. So she's doing this and it's like 9:50.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So it's dark.
So it's dark. And then my neighbor comes outside and I'm like, and they're very sweet people. But I knew it was getting close to time, and I'm sure they were already in bed. And I felt horrible because there's a lot that comes into this story. So my girls and I have lived here for almost 9 months. My girls, my 2 hound dogs. And this, where I'm living, is an answer to prayer. It's almost like a God provided something for me that in my human mind was totally impossible.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we have this beautiful place. The year before we were here, we lived in a basement. Every time we went outside, they had to be on leashes. They had no windows to look out of. Now they've got tons of windows and a huge fenced in backyard. It's basically paradise, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So keep that in mind. So we get here and then this happens. And so I'm like, and I'm talking to my neighbor and I said, please forgive me. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do. I'm going to have to lock her up. And I don't have a kennel because I don't kennel my dogs. But here we are. They have a doggy door. They can go in and out as they please. But I had to get a hold of her and I felt so terrible. Like, it's like when you feel bad when you punish your kids, you hate to do it. Right. But it's necessary. So because then she was like fueling her sister. Then Leia starts barking and Leia didn't even know what she was barking at. She was just barking. And I had even so I went into the kitchen to find an arsenal. I'm like, okay, what do I do here? So I got a canister of cayenne pepper and apple cider vinegar. So all around the ramp and all on the sides, I poured all of this cayenne pepper and apple cider vinegar because if she got a sniff of that, she wouldn't go back there, right? Didn't phase her, Aaron.
Love spicy, vinegary stuff.
Did not phase her. So, yeah, didn't phase her. So she went nuts. So I got her inside. I stuck her upstairs in the bedroom and I put the baby gate across the door to the bedroom. And then she's up there howling, so upset that I put her in there. Like, and I'm thinking they probably think I hate them because, right? Because they're stuck in there. Anyway, the basic moral to all of this. So then but then I got like freaked out, like, oh, maybe they're gonna have to pee. I don't want them to pee, maybe that's why she's whining to go pee. So then I got them on leashes to take them out in the backyard on leashes, which was weird because we've never done that.
Right.
So everything was just weird for all of us last night. None of us got really good sleep. And for me, it was just, I felt really guilty. But here's what it made me think of, that sometimes God has something for us to do. He's got a place to bring us into. And sometimes he brings us into that place, but we are untamed with what we are there to do, or we are undisciplined with what we are there to do. So like Luca, she was untamed. She was just fierce hound dog prey drive, not considering anything else, right? Not disciplining herself.
Right.
Nor should she, because she's a dog, but we as people,
yes,
right? We have that capability. We have a frontal lobe that allows us to plan and make decisions and judge, and listen to wisdom's call. So sometimes God has something for us to do. And this spoke personally to me because it's like, I know God is doing something in my life. And now I'm probably going to cry, because this is where God uses his wisdom. He speaks his wisdom through my dogs for my benefit. And maybe it'll bless somebody else. And so I've been waiting for some things to happen and just feeling really frustrated. It's like, I can see it. It's right in front of me, but I can't have it. When I had to put them back, I just felt like God said, sometimes he didn't say this, but the message was, sometimes I have to confine you before I can release you into what you can see.
yes.
So, and interestingly enough, this year, my word is surrender. And so I'm really, really working hard to surrender a lot of things in my life. And so God is working with me in that way. And he's helping me to lay things down that I've just been holding on to. So hopefully that confinement is for my protection, so that I cannot be my own undoing, so that, whatever Luca, if I had left her to her own devices, she would have gone hoarse. She might have even, licked the cayenne pepper out of frustration, or I don't know, gotten sick, whatever it is. Got a neighbor might have come out and shot her. I mean, I have houses around here that have, those flags that say, come and get them. So, I live in an area where people have guns.
Or she could have like gotten underneath there and unable to get out, or
correct. Yeah. Anything could have happened. And so I had to confine her to protect her and to allow her to rest.
Yes.
Because she wouldn't have rested.
No.
She wouldn't have rested. And so I had to force her to rest. And so sometimes maybe somebody listening, you're in a place and you feel like you can see it.
Yeah.
It's there. You just want to go be a part of it.
Yes.
But you can't yet, because there's still some refining to do.
Yeah. Yes. Or it's not for your own good.
Right. That's my story.
Lessons from dogs and call waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to go way off the mark of your call.
No, no. I love that, because it's that wisdom, and not that, you're God to your dogs, but like, this is the point. You have a wisdom, you have a viewpoint, you have a perspective that the dog simply can't have.
Yeah. Right.
And so we have to be responsible for that. And that is the Lord. That's what it's saying in Proverbs. Like, the wisdom is here. There are things you don't know, you can't see, you aren't aware of, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And this wisdom is here to protect you and guide you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's all I got.
Well, it was perfect. All right, people. So every Friday at 2 Eastern, we are here. Next Friday, I'll be tuning in from Denver.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So
What are you going to be doing in Denver?
I'm going to a conference in Denver. Woo. Called
Nice. Called what?
Yeah, I muted myself. Called Embrace Your Ambition.
I love it. Love it.
Yes. So, but join us on Fridays and tell your friends.
Yeah, tell your friends. We'll be back here at 2:00 next Friday, Eastern Standard Time. Don't sign off yet. Hold on. And next week, if you want to read along with us for the next week, we will be reading Proverbs chapter 8, verses 7 through 13.
Yes, ma'am. All right. We'll see you guys next